Welcome to yet another edition of the Stats and Stacks podcast. For today, we're going over UFC 294, Makhachev versus Volkanovski. First things first, make sure you give this video a like, hit the subscribe button, give a follow over on Twitter, over on TikTok, over on YouTube, wherever there is social media, there is the Stats and Stacks podcast. As always, a super quick recap of last week. We absolutely crushed. It sucks that out of the 11 fight card, we got 9 out of 11 right. Really close to hitting every single fight correct. But two of them we missed were the over under. So we were too scared with the winners, went with an over under and got both wrong. But both locks came through. Both dogs came through, and some of the side bets we had paid off. So it was one hell of a week, a profitable week, a fun week. So, and that was a card that didn't have a lot of potential. Now this has a card that's a pay-per-view, and there's a lot of star potential here. A lot of bigger names, a lot of people we've seen over and over and over again. So we are fully cognizant of how they generally fight. And sometimes that means it could be a real easy night, real profitable night. But if you see the same people fight over and over, and then they choose to fight a different way that you just absolutely can't predict, it can also get you in trouble. So these pay-per-view cards are usually we get absolutely murdered or we absolutely crush. There's no in between. And I think the biggest thing on this fight card, again, a lot of these times I say they have like themes. This one is UFC 294 vet lesson. A lot of young up and comers against some really rangy veterans of the game. And it's a matter of, are these young timers going to take over, or are these old timers going to teach them a vet lesson? I don't know. There's going to be some dogs that come through for sure with that circumstance. So I mean, it's kind of not all the way that way with the first fight of the night, but in regards to UFC experience, it kind of is. The very first fight of the night, we have Bruno Silva at plus 225 taking on the newcomer, Sharabutin Magomedov at minus 280. Over under sitting at 1.5. Over 1.5 and under 1.5 straight. Pick 'em minus 115. Let's just go ahead and start with the one-eyed villain here and Shara Booten. 11-0, predominantly a striker, very good striker, one of the most intimidating figures I've ever seen in UFC history. Just a scary looking dude, and he's a bad man. Like, he has really good striking, really fast. He's undefeated. He's 29, so he's in his prime. Really great striking with that Muay Thai background. I mean, it's going to be his debut, but he does have a lot of experience, even though he's 11-0 in MMA. He had a lot of just pre UFC kickboxing experience, even a win over the GOAT Blood Diamond, Mike Mathia over here. If you beat Blood Diamond in a striking fight, you're the GOAT, clearly. He has a ton of power. He kind of reminds me of like a 185-pound Rafael Fiziev. He fights the exact same way. He has the curly hair like him. He's Russian like him. He's essentially middleweight Fiziev. He seems to have good cardio. He carries a lot of power, but he carries it all 3 rounds. And again, this card is in Abu Dhabi. It's very close to Russia, basically a Russian card. So he will have the crowd behind him. A lot of good things to like about this guy. The cons: UFC debut. He's never been in this position. It's nice that he'll be at home for his UFC debut. That's a big plus. And obviously, let's just address the elephant in the room. The dude's got one eye. And initially, I thought, whatever, it's not that big of a deal solely because he's used to it. He's not. He lost his eye in 2018, 2019. It's only been like 3 years. It has not been a long time. He's used to having two eyes. He lost it in a training incident. Then he just started losing vision, and then all of a sudden he now only has one eye. So I know that we've had a champion with one eye before, and Michael Bisping, but you're at a severe disadvantage. I mean, if someone is throwing from the other side, you can't see. You talk about when people get eye pokes, or you'll hear when someone has blood like rushing through an eye, they'll target that side because they can't see the strikes coming as well. But the dude has literally no vision there. He has a fake eye. So it's going to be really hard for him. If anyone just wants to target that side, again, I'm sure he's used to it by now. And it's only been 3 years. So, like, if he runs into someone very good, I think he is in some serious trouble. Is Bruno Silva that guy? I don't know, man. It's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde with this guy. I think he's good. A lot of people are down on Silva. I think he's good. I think he's a little older and he came to the UFC a little late. I will give him that. But his regional scene was held over here in Russia. He's used to being an underdog against a big, scary Russian. Like that is his MO. That's been his entire career. He himself has good striking and he carries a ton of power as well. I think almost all of his wins are by knockout. His get up game is good, mainly because his takedown defense is not. But again, Magomedov doesn't really like to shoot takedowns. He's predominantly a striker. So I think we have a striker versus striker matchup here. Thing I don't like is that Bruno is a little hittable and he's 34 years old. He's not young. He's not a youngin in this game. And we're seeing that durability cracked. He got really, really hurt in the Jordan Wright fight. He got really, really, really hurt in the Alex Pereira fight. He got really, 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 really hurt against Gerald Meerschaert before getting choked out. And then he was basically out on his feet against Brendan Allen before getting choked out. So technically, he's never been knocked out. But I just named 3 fights as of late where he's been cracked and rocked and didn't really know where he was. I think it's age getting to him. He's been in a lot of wars, and it's just Father Time is undefeated. His jiu-jitsu is okay, but if you're rocked, you can't really do anything about it. And he has a propensity to slow down in his fights. I'm not a fan of that because again, Magomedov has a tendency to carry the power even in the round 3. Um, Again, I don't know if Bruno's chinny, but I do think his age is catching up with him, and he can be countered a ton. He's for someone that strikes a lot and is predominantly a striker, he's kind of hittable. He'll throw with some heat, but he throws so goddamn hard. If he misses, he is just sitting there as easy prey for a counter, and he gets countered a shit ton. Like if Gerald Meerschaert is countering you, you're in some trouble. If anyone with any sort of power comes at you, I think his never been knocked out streak might be in some serious jeopardy here. Now, when he fought Alex Pereira, he did try to implement a wrestling game plan. I think he should probably do so here as well. I'm not too high on Butin's wrestling, to be honest with you. It's crazy to say he's a Russian. I'm not high on his wrestling. Is Bruno the better wrestler? Probably. But Butin also knows that people want to take him down and he can get back up. In addition, I never like betting strikers to wrestle. It just never works out. That's not their MO. That's not what they're built to do. They gas themselves out doing it because they're not used to it. They get caught with knees and such going in because they're not used to it. Never trust a striker to wrestle as their only way of victory. So the pick is going to be Butin. The bet, God, they both throw with so much heat, and one of them have one fucking eye. I wanted to take the under. I don't like that it's at 1.5. So I might take sounds weird. I think I'm going to take the alternative round and take the 2.5 and hope that this thing doesn't go. Or I might just choose doesn't go the distance. It might be the safer bet. It's going to be a little chalkier, but I think it's the safest route because it's under 1.5. You have someone in the debut. You have someone that might try to wrestle. I don't want to play around with that over under. And I don't really want to pick a side because they both hit like absolute trucks. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to pick Butin, but I'm going to say does not go the distance as a bet. All right, next fight of the night, we have another veteran versus newcomer, or not you newcomer, but young lady fight. We have Jin Yu Frey as a plus 380 dog going up against Victoria Dudikova at minus 500. Over under setting at 2.5. Over 2.5 minus 240. Under 2.5 at plus 180. Let's start with Dudikova because I think she's absolutely terrible. In no world should she be a minus 500, minus 600 favorite. I understand that she's 7-0. She's young. She just turned 24. Dude, she's trash. She's absolutely terrible. She's gonna have a 2-inch reach advantage, which is nice. She is Russian, so she will have the crowd behind her. Her jiu-jitsu is pretty good. I'll give it to her. Her jiu-jitsu is pretty good. Her wrestling is not. It's god awful. She's a big girl. She tries to just muscle you down, and that's all she can do. She has a body lock takedown that she likes to do. Zero technique. She literally grabs a hold of your waist and tries to just tight waist you and squeeze you and just drag you down to the ground. Zero technique whatsoever. Like terrible, terrible, terrible wrestling. Her striking, literally non-existent. I've never seen this girl strike. She runs forward, head down, puts her arms out, tries to grab a body lock and muscle you down to the ground. That's literally all she has. I promise you, I've never seen her strike. It cannot be good. I've seen her hitting pads on Instagram. It was not good. So this girl, like, it's not that she is bad striking. She physically cannot strike. She has no wrestling. Her jiu-jitsu is good. It's just a matter of can she get her down there? I mean, it's to the point where a few fights I saw her pull guard because she's that confident in her jiu-jitsu and she knows her wrestling is absolutely terrible. Her cardio checks out. Being a 24-year-old girl, that's nice. But again, you can't be that one-dimensional at this day and age. It's 2023. You got to at least be able to do two of the three martial arts that are prominent in MMA. You got to strike, you got to wrestle, you got to have jujitsu. You got to have at least two of those. She literally only has the one. She just is like a what's her name? Teresa Bleda. That's all she is. Like she can't strike. She has good jujitsu, but she can't really wrestle. Like this is literally Bleda 2.0. Super young, super green. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. So if she fights anyone with any sort of takedown defense or any sort of striking or a really good ground game, she's in trouble, especially if you can wrestle. If you have any type of striking, it can be really bad. As long as you can strike a touch and have good takedown defense, you are going to absolutely kill Dudakova. I don't know what's going on with Jin Frey. I basically described Jin Frey, to be honest with you. She's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Her striking isn't great, but she has a decent one too, hits decently hard. And right now she's rocking like a 90% takedown defense. So all of that screams this is the girl to do it. Here's the problem. She's 38 years old, and she had her best days as an anim weight in Invicta. So she's small. Dudakova cannot wrestle, wants to grab a body lock and just squeeze you down to the ground and muscle you. She's fighting someone that used to fight a weight class under her. Not a good look. I don't like that at all. On the flip side, as someone that used to wrestle myself, if you're the taller person, body locks work better. If you're the shorter person, going after like singles and doubles work a lot better. But if you're taller and you're much taller, body locks just are easier to come by. You can jack them up and then just kind of shift their weight whichever way you want to go. Dudakova is going to be much larger, so that definitely plays into her. Also, Frey is very low volume, but again, Dudakova doesn't even throw punches. On average, she averages 20 strikes per fight, so she's at Muhammad Usman level striking output. That's not good. That's not good company. These are probably the two lowest I've ever seen in UFC history. So at that juncture, even if Dudakova gets her to the ground, she doesn't do anything with it, and it's damage over control. But can Frey get back up if she gets taken down? I hope so. I don't know. She's good at jiu-jitsu. I hope she doesn't just play on her back. Secondly, that 89% takedown defense that I talked about, against who? She fought Vanessa Demopoulos. Vanessa Demopoulos can't wrestle, and she did get one takedown on Frey, so I don't like that. Polyana Viana just knocked her out in 40 seconds. Elise Reed doesn't even know how to spell takedown. Ashley Yoder is we just saw her last week. She's a terrible, terrible wrestler. Gloria DePaula is a kickboxer. Luma Lubume is a kickboxer. Kay Hansen, I don't really know what Kay Hansen is, to be honest with you. She's cut. That's what she is. So at that point, she really didn't fight any wrestlers, and the only ones that actually try to implement a wrestling game plan are Vanessa Demopoulos and Ashley Yoder, who are known as being two of the worst female wrestlers in MMA. Like Jillian Robertson looks like a good wrestler compared to those two. So yeah, shows a good takedown percentage, but she's not fighting girls that are going to do it right. And they were shooting doubles. They love doubles. Dudakova loves body locks, and I don't like that being the bigger girl. So I do want to lean Dudakova. I'll pick Dudakova. Not a fucking chance I'm betting her at minus 500, minus 600. I know Jin Frey is 38. I know she's sporting an 11-9 record. I know that she used to be an anim weight champion at 105. I don't give a fuck. Dudakova can't strike. Dudakova can't wrestle. And this might be the first bet lesson. So I'm going to pick Dudakova, but there is a chance I just value hunt and I put a bet on Frey. There's actually a good chance of that. I'm trying to talk myself out of it, but it just makes too much damn sense. Right, next fight of the night, we have another one that I'm absolutely petrified of. We have Nathaniel Wood at minus 340 going up against, Muhammaduzhan Naimov at plus 260. Over under set at 2.5. Over 2.5 minus 175. Under 2.5 plus 135. Let's start with Nathaniel Wood because he's good, man. I like Nathaniel Wood alike. There's everything to like about this kid. He is 30 years old, so he's in his prime. He has good striking. He's fast as shit. He has sneaky good wrestling. We saw him take down Charles Jourdain like 5 or 6 times or something like that. He has a pretty decent schedule. He's fought from pretty decent guys. The aforementioned Jourdain, Andre Touchy-Feely. We see Charles Rosa. Casey Kenny is a good fighter. John Castaneda is a good win. John Dodson. Like, these are pretty decent level competition. His cardio checks out. He can slow just a touch in some fights, but he's generally pretty good there. His jiu-jitsu is pretty decent. He throws a ton of volume, really high volume. And again, like I said, even though he's predominantly a striker at a good striking camp, he will mix in a takedown here or there and different variations. I've seen him shoot doubles. I've seen him get body locks. He really loves his trips. He kept doing that over and over against Jourdain. So all in all, he's a good fighter everywhere. Here's the problem with Nathaniel Wood. Firstly, he's chinny. He gets chin checked a lot. Andre Fili dropped him badly. Charles Jourdain dropped him. Casey Kenny did not. John Dodson put him out. So in his last 5 fights, we've seen him drop down to the ground 3 of his last 5 fights. Here's the other concerning part. He's been fighting up at 145, and he ain't no featherweight. I don't know what the difficulty is cutting down to 135. I am not a UFC fighter. So, hey, all the power to you. If he says he can't make it, I believe him. Let him go 145. But his body type seems more acceptable for 135. I know he's thick, but he just looks so tiny. Andre Fili's not a huge featherweight, and he looked like they're in different weight classes. Charles Jourdain is not a huge featherweight. They looked like they were in different weight classes. Like, you can tell when he's up at 145, something doesn't look right. He just looks too small. He's thickening even more. Like, I understand that he can't make it. I'm totally on his side. I want him to be healthy, but he's chinny at 135. 135, he got knocked out. Maybe 145, he'll be a little better up a weight class, not cutting as much weight. No, I'm seeing soft punchers putting him up. Charles Jourdain, not known for his power, dropped him. Andre Fili, definitely not known for his power, dropped him badly to where they could have stopped the fight. Like, this isn't good. I don't like it. 145 has not been good for his chin. So if he fights anyone with any semblance of power, he is always liable to get knocked out. Bro, that's all Naimov has. Naimov has pretty decent striking. He looks like a wrestler, but his takedown defense is trash. It's very weird. You would think that he's a wrestler just by where he's from, his build, how he looks, how he speaks, how he talks. And he's not a wrestler. He's a striker. He's rocking a 50% takedown defense. He's strong as shit, though. He will pop back up. He's pretty hittable on the feet for someone that wants to strike. I believe the crowd will definitely be behind him, being a Tajikistan fighter. And his cardio seems to check out. He looks like all big, muscly, and strong. He should slow down. He looks like a wrestler that should gas out. Instead, he's a striker with good cardio. He's just a little hittable and has bad takedown defense. So, all in all, Nathaniel Wood is the better striker. Here's the problem. Naimov is one of these guys that just need one shot. He went up a weight class in his UFC debut on short notice and fought Jamie Malarkey. I was the only one on Naimov, but I watched his fights and I was like, dude, this guy can crack. Like, Jamie Malarkey, his chin is awful. Like, his chin's very, very bad. I don't care that Hillman is going up a weight class. Naimov is going to knock out Jamie Malarkey. He's going to catch him eventually. He went out there and got murked round 1. He got absolutely smoked by Jamie Malarkey. Then round 2 came out, 1 counter, put him out. Lights out, up at 155, knocked out basically a ranked guy at 155. Okay, now he's dropping down to his normal weight class at 145. Dude's gonna hit even harder. Not a good look for Nathaniel Wood, who's very small for the weight class and can get out muscled and has a suspect chin. This is the worst case scenario for Wood. Don't get me wrong, Wood is the better striker. He's the better wrestler. He's the better jiu-jitsu practitioner. He's fought the better competition. Everything screams Wood. He's faster. He throws more. Everything. Wood is literally the better fighter anywhere this fight goes, except for one thing. Naimov cannot get knocked out. Essentially, it looks like both of his losses are by decision. And Wood, he gets chin checked all the fucking time. So it's petrifying. You know who the better fighter is. You know who should win, but until that 15 minutes is up, you are scared. So you can do 2 things. One, Wood is definitely the pick. I would not parlay Wood at minus 330. I'm telling you right now, he could be the one to screw it up. So if you really want to get crazy, I think Naimov, the only way he wins this fight is by knockout. Wood, I think the only way he wins this fight is by decision. So pick a side, have at it. You can't even play the over-under there because you're basically picking a winner. So in that case, is it going to be the knockout? Is it going to be decision? I'm going to say Wood, but contingent on those numbers, I need to take a look at what that knockout prop is. I think the value chaser in me is going to make me choose Naimov by knockout. But if you give me anything over 200 for Wood by decision, I'll probably take that. So let me look at the numbers. The pick is going to be Wood. If anything, the best value is Naimov by knockout. But take a peek at Wood by decision. Plus 200, bet that instead. All right, next fight of the night. We're going to have some controversy. We have Anshul Jubilee at minus 305 going up against Mike Breeden at plus 245. Over under sitting at a smooth 1.5. Over 1.5 minus 200. Over 1.5 minus 200. Under 1.5 plus 150. Again, we're talking about these vets versus these newcomers. Let's do it again. Let's start with Anshul Jubilee. He's going to be the one that the crowd is going to be behind. However, he's like one of the first Indian fighters in the UFC. He's 7-0, have the crowd behind them. Here's the problem. He's terrible. He's absolutely terrible. He won road to UFC to get a UFC contract. I'm telling you right now, the guys he fought, very, very suspect. I mean, the guy he fought in the finale is terrible. Like, absolutely. I know he shows a 13-2 record. He fought nothing but cans and people with negative records. And honestly, Jubilee kind of did the same. Outside of the road to UFC fights, 2-2, 6-4, 2-0, 5-4, 4-0 in his first ever, but that guy's very, very suspect. That suspect 4-0. Had a terrible regional scene. He came in, he got an upset in Road to UFC. He was brought in to lose. He got an upset in the Road to UFC by split decision where a lot of people thought he lost. He then had someone like miss weight or something like that. So he automatically got put into the finals where he fought a fraudulent guy. So he won a split that a lot of people thought he lost. He beat a whole bunch of nobodies, and then he beat a fraud. So that's not a good look here. What is he good at? I don't really fucking know. His striking looks bad. His wrestling looks bad. He's cocky as shit. Like, I cannot stand this kid. He's very, very like cockier than Cameron Simon cocky. Like, there's something wrong with him. He thinks he's the shit. Schedule's terrible. I guess he throws a ton. He's decent volume. I'll give him that. I guess he fancies himself a striker, but he's also hittable. I don't know, man. I don't like this guy at all. I have no positives to say in regards to his overall MMA game. On the other side, Mike Breeden, not a lot of positives there either, to be honest with you. His striking's okay. He's one of these guys that used to train with James Krause. He had to find the new gym after that whole debacle. And I believe, yeah, he's with Marathon MMA, so training over with Trey Ogden. Not a fan of that, to be honest with you. But he too has high volume. He is a little hittable, 60% takedown defense. Now, his defense is better than it shows on paper. But when you fight Natan Levy, he's a pretty decent wrestler. He fought Terrence McKinney, but he just got knocked out. You fought Anthony Romero, is a pretty decent wrestler. Like, both those guys, I mean, let's get it right. Natan Levy took him down 9 times, so that's going to skew that 60% number, to be honest with you. But again, he's a little chinny and a little hittable. Granted, the guy's knocking him out. Alexander Hernandez hits extremely hard, so no shame there. Terrence McKinney is probably the hardest hitter at 155. Not a lot of shame there. Did get knocked out on the regional scene. That's not the greatest luck. So he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He has 6 career losses, and 3 of them are by knockout. Yeah, it's. I don't know. Two of the guys that knocked him out hit extremely hard, so it's hard to say he's chinny. Again, even though he has a 60% takedown defense, he does get up. He has a pretty good get up game. He doesn't spend a ton of time down there. He can slow down in his fight, but Jubilee in his fight to win road to UFC looked gassed after round 1. Like, he goes out there and usually gets early finishes. That Urigy guy took him to, not Urigy, Jerke, whatever his name is, took him to round 2 and was exhausted. He was really tired. Lucky to get a takedown and get a finish, but he looked gassed. Breeden, yeah, not the greatest cardio, but he can at least fight a full 15 and do some damage in the 3rd round. We saw him do damage in the 3rd round in his Contender Series fight. We saw him do damage in the 3rd round in the Natan Levy fight. All in all, Breeden's the guy that's been in the UFC. He's fought under the UFC banner 4 times. It's going to be his 5th time. He's the one with experience, and he's the one I'm going to have to go with here. So the pick is going to be Breeden. The bet's going to be Breeden. I truly believe Jubilee is a fraud. I literally have 0 positives to say about him. He needs to prove me wrong. Speaking of people I don't really like, Cedric Dumas at minus 205 and growing, going up against Abu Azatar at plus 170. Over under sitting at 1.5, over 1.5 minus 150, under 1.5 at plus 120. Let's just start on the hate tour. Cedric Dumas, or a lot of people call him Cedric Dumbass. He sucks. He's not very good. He has a 3-inch reach advantage here, which is nice. His jiu-jitsu is questionable. He has a decent front choke considering how tall and lanky he is. He has those skinny arms and can snatch up a neck, but he's predominantly a striker. He's very low volume on the feet. His wins very questionable. Cody Brundage thought he would go out there and smoke him, took the fight on short notice, didn't get the choke early round 1 and just gassed out. And Cedric was talking to his corner the entire fight. Like, it's like he didn't know what was doing. Usually the coaches give you suggestions. They're not there to actually coach you through the entire fight. And he literally just followed what they said, would grab Cody, look up as Cody was death gassed, would just hold Cody, talk to his coaches. Oh, okay, I'll try that. And would just having full on conversation in the middle of the fight. That's not a good look. And again, he hits decently hard, but he just doesn't throw enough for me, to be honest with you. And in regards to his experience, not a lot of it. He only has 9 career fights, and a lot of them ended in round 1. And he has 1 fight that went to decision against Cody. And honestly, even in like the Josh Fremd fight, his cardio seemed to fail him. His jiu-jitsu, yeah, he's a decent choke sequence, but he himself doesn't have any submission defense. Not a lot to like about him, and especially his wrestling's bad, and especially his character just I know I'm all for second chances. I understand he's done nothing wrong as of late. But all in all, I'm not going to go into it, but his criminal background very sketchy with some of the stuff he was doing. On the flip side, we have Abu Azatar, who's not much better himself. On a personal basis, I guess he can be a little more acceptable. On a fighter standpoint, not at all. You want to talk about can crushers. This guy, oh my God. He's some sort of Moroccan prince or something like that, or he's friends with the royal family. Something weird to where he is like a billionaire and does not need to fight. Him and his brother Ottman do it for fun. They do not need to fight. They just do it to try to look like badasses. He had nothing but being literal royalty. Believe me, his regional scenes, he was fighting nothing but bums. Like the lowest of the low. Whatever you could give him to guarantee a win is what he was going to do there. At the end of the day, he hits decently hard. He does have some power, and his striking's not terrible for about 4 minutes. Then he falls off a fucking cliff. He has zero cardio whatsoever. He throws high volume. He throws a ton at you. But if he doesn't put you away, he has nothing left. He's 37 years old, so his cardio is not going to get any better. And the last time we saw him, he got absolutely melted in the last round against Marc-Andre Barriault. And that was in 2021. So we haven't seen this dude in like 3 years. I guarantee you his cardio has not gotten better these last 3 years. So at the end of the day, both are, I would say Azatar is a better striker, but a jiu-jitsu practitioner. I guess I'm sad to say Dumas. In regards to wrestling, the answer is neither wrestle. And in regards to cardio, neither one of them have cardio. So I know Dumas has never been finished before, so that's a thing. In regards to being knocked out, I should say. That seems to be Azatar's only way to win here, but he will have the crowd behind them, so at least there's that. I cannot trust Dumbass at this much. Like, no, absolutely not as a minus 230 favorite. I think the last time I checked, you are high to bet that dude that high. So it's a sheer dog or pass. The pick is going to be a boo, the bet's going to be a boo. Don't feel great about it, but you fade Dumbass at minus 230. Don't fucking do it. Next fight of the night, we are looking at a pretty decent one here. We have Javid Basharat minus 535 going up against Victor Henry at plus 400. Over under at 2.5. Over 2.5 minus 270. Under 2.5 plus 200. This is another vet versus young man record, but the thing is, Victor Henry's the vet, but has less fights in the UFC. Javid is 14-0. And Basharat's my boy. I said I was rocking with the Snow Leopard from the time I saw him on Contender Series. He's 28 years old, so he's just in his prime. He's in Extreme Couture, which is a phenomenal champ with Chris Curtis and the current middleweight champion, Sean Strickland. He has good striking. He has good wrestling, trains with Jake Shields a ton. He has good jiu-jitsu, tapped out a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt in his Dana White Contender Series fight. He has great cardio. He's going to have the crowd behind him. He has really high volume, really high fight IQ. Dude, there's literally nothing not to like about this guy outside of, I guess, his level of competition, but it's getting better. I mean, Mendoka, maybe not. Tony Gravely's a decent fighter. Trevin Jones, a decent fighter. Like he's not fighting scrubs. Like they're decent guys. They're no longer with the UFC, but they're not terrible fighters. It's just a matter of getting him at those big time fights, getting him ranked opponents. Like I talked about not one thing I liked about Jubilee. There's not one thing I don't like about Javid. I guess the only thing I don't like is that he doesn't have a ton of power. UFC level, he's become a little bit of a decisionator, but he wins convincingly. So there's not really much you can say there. Javid's damn good. But Victor Henry's getting a little disrespected with this line. Do I think Javid should be the favorite? Yes. Do I think Victor Henry should be a plus 400 underdog? No. Victor Henry's good, man. Victor Henry has good striking. He has good jiu-jitsu. He himself has high volume. He has good takedown defense. He has good cardio. He throws a ton of volume. Problem with him is that he's 36 years old. He also doesn't hit that hard. He's kind of pillow-fisted as well. And his chin is, again, I call it an Usman chin because for years Usman would get knocked out, would get cracked, but not go out. He would just get wobbled everywhere. Same thing. Victor Henry's never been knocked out, but I've watched some regional scene fights and he gets cracked all the fucking time. His striking defense could be a little better, to be honest with you. But when he does get cracked, he never goes out. But I've seen him rocked and wobbled multiple times, like almost every fight. This dude is there to get hit, but he dishes out just as much. I mean, he's averaging like 140 strikes per minute. Like or not per minute, 140 strikes per fight. Like he's throwing a ton of volume out there. And he's good everywhere. And he has a ton of experience. He fought some of the best you can fight on the regional scene overseas. Like this dude, yes, he's barely, I mean, he has wins over Kyler Phillips, for God's sake. Like, yes, he hasn't won that much in the UFC. Yes, he's 36, but his win loss to Rafael Sunsao, if we ran that back, I feel like he would win that. I think he underestimated there. And win over Honey Barcelos looks great. Win over Tony Gravely looks good. Like they both beat Tony Gravely. Javid's was a little more convincing though. So I know MMA math never works, but with these two fighters being essentially the same thing, I'm just going to take the over. I'm a little scared of it because again, Victor Henry is due to get knocked out. But Javid's been a decisionator as of late. Minus 530 is just too high going against someone that throws like 140 strikes per fight. I don't want to be caught on the wrong end of the decision. So I'm just going to pick for it to go to a distance, or I'll pick the over 2.5 at minus 270. So the pick's going to be Javid. The bet's going to be the over 2.5. And just parlay that over. Next fight of the night, don't even think about it over. We have Trevor Peak making his return. Minus 155 going up against Muhammad Yahya at plus 130. Over under set at 1.5. Over 1.5 minus 105. Under 1.5 minus 125. We got to start with my boy Peak. Been rocking with Peak ever since he was on Contender Series. He won me some money. I tweeted about it and he liked my tweet. So if you like our tweet at Stats and Stack, we rock with you until the wheels fall off, baby. He has a ton of power. His striking, so it's unconventional. It works for him. It's not good. It's not technical at all. It's literally a brawl. He is a brawler out there. His wrestling takedown defense, not the greatest. 15% takedown defense. It doesn't look great. His jiu-jitsu, not really there at all. His durability, I've seen him cracked multiple times. He's never gone out, but he's been cracked a lot to where you thought he was going out. But this dude hits so goddamn hard and throws his all into everything. He is the scariest man to fight on the roster. Again, his striking's not good. It's very unconventional, but he moves forward, he hits hard, and it works for him. He makes that brawler style work for him. And he's only has one loss, for Christ's sake. Like, it's not like it's terrible. He's 8-1, and he's 28, and he's learning. He's learning on the job, but you can't teach heart, and you can't teach power. On the other side, we have Yaya. He's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage, which is nice. He was going to have the crowd behind him, which is super nice. He has a lot of submissions on his record. but he's not really the greatest jiu-jitsu practitioner, to be honest with you. He has fought cans, like absolute cans. Very, very sketchy record going on here, and some of them have winning records, but they're not great. Like 4-4 and 3-4, 4-2. Like they're not great winning records. 2-1, 1-0. And the few times he fought guys that had that had decent records, he fought someone that was 1-0, he got KO'd. He fought someone that was 9-1, he got submitted. He fought someone that was 3-0, he got submitted. Like he goes out there and he gets finished by anyone that's actually real. I've seen him wrestle a lot in some of his fights, but he's predominantly a striker. So I don't know. I don't know. He's pretty hittable. His cardio looks pretty bad, but so is Peaks, to be honest with you. So and I've seen him rocked a lot. Like this dude's pretty chinny. I think the UFC knows what they have in Peak and they want to get Peak a win. However, they know where they are for this fight card. And if Yaya wins, it's not the worst thing in the world knowing that he's from the UAE. So it's kind of a win-win for the UFC. They get to push one of the most exciting fighters, or they get to get a crowd pop for the hometown kid. It's a win-win, but both these guys probably win inside the distance. So it's going to be a fun fight. UFC is going to get a lot of money no matter what. But on our end, we want to make money, and we're going to take the insane power of Peak. And we're going to rock with that against the Yaya suspect chin. So the pick is going to be Peak. The bet is going to end up being Peak. Next fight of the night, we have another bet lesson that may or may not be learned. We have Tim Elliott at plus 350 going up against Muhammad Makhachev at minus 455. Over 2.5, minus 190. Under 2.5, plus 145. God, what to do with this fight? Let's start with Tim Elliott, because right now, I don't know where his head is at. Obviously, we know about the debacle with him and Gina Mazzani and Kevin Kroom and all that wildness that's going on. I need Tim Elliott to be focused because he's not exactly a spring chicken. He's 36 years old. He's no longer at the camp that he loved. And he's sponsoring the guy that's fighting Kevin Kroom in his bare knuckle fight. He needs to stop worrying about Kevin Kroom and worry about his own fight that he has going on here. At the end of the day, he's a very good wrestler. He is an okay jiu-jitsu practitioner offensively. Defensively, he seems to get choked out quite a bit. His striking, I can't say it's good. It's very herky-jerky and just one... it kind of looks like Amanda Hebos's striking, to be honest with you. You don't really know where they're throwing. They throw at really weird angles, and it's really, like, choppy. It's just weird. I don't know how to describe it. Only he can do that style. 60% takedown defense. I wish it was a little better. Again, he's good offensively with jiu-jitsu. He's good offensively with his wrestling, but sometimes even he'll let you take him down so that he can create scrambles. He loves scrambling. He's the king of scrambles. He will literally let you get deep in his legs so that he can create a scramble. Like he's very, very, very good at that. But if you do get him down, he can get stuck on the ground a little bit. So I don't know. He's a little all over the place. Sometimes he fights great, sometimes he fights poorly. And he's fought a good schedule, man. He's fought the who's who. He fought for the title once against Demetrius Johnson. He fought Tagir Ulianbekov. He fought Brandon Royval, Askar Askarov, Davidson Figueroa. Like he's fighting very, very, very good fighters, and some of them are the GOATs. But at the same time, his wins aren't like Luis Smoka's not that great. Mark De La Rosa, you got exposed. Ryan Benoit got exposed. Jordan Espinoza got exposed. Victor Altamirano got exposed. Like he gets to a certain level to where he's, you can say gatekeeper to an extent. I don't even know if he's that high. I like Tim Elliott. He's an OG. He's been in the UFC forever. And he is a good fighter. He's a good parameter test. I guess he is a gatekeeper. On the other side, we have Muhammad Makhachev, who I don't know what to do with him, to be honest with you. I think he's overhyped. He's young, though. I think he is a future champ, but I think it's a lot further down the road than he thinks. He's only 23 years old, so he needs to slow his roll a little bit. He's going to have the crowd behind him for sure. He's originally from Russia. I know he's claiming England and such, but born in Russia, good wrestling, 4-inch reach advantage. I was not expecting that. His jiu-jitsu's good. He has a lot of good guillotine chokes, like a lot of good front choke sequences. So Tim does have to be weary of that, considering he's been choked out like 5 times. However, Makhachev's cardio is pretty good. His striking is not. His striking is really bad. He'll throw flashy stuff, like he'll throw the flying knees, like we saw against Cody Durden. He'll throw spinning back fists and spinning back kicks. Like he throws flashy stuff to get the crowd reaction, but he doesn't really have any ill intent behind it. He's not trying to knock you out. He's just trying to keep you at bay, and then he's going to eventually shoot a takedown where he feels comfortable. His wrestling and his ground game is where he wants. He's a grappler. He knows that's what he's good at. And he knows that he has a motor and he'll do it forever. He loves to move forward. He's just does a lot of young kid stuff. He gets caught all the time. Obviously, everyone's going to talk about the Fialo fight where he got his kneecap snapped in half, but he refused to tap. He just stayed in there with no kneecap, and then eventually got Fialo out by submission with a few seconds left. That was very, very impressive, but he shouldn't have been put in that situation. Malcolm Gordon, again, he is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but he's traditionally a striker. And Gordon was able to take his back, get Makhachev in some really bad positions in round 2. And Makhachev ultimately got the finish in round 3, which is nice. Obviously, we saw him kill Cody Durden early, and Charles Johnson, former training partner, he just took him down and held him down forever. So not really much to say there. It's just Makhachev, man. He has no striking and he makes some 23-year-old kid mistakes. I think he is truly a future champ. He's 23. I think 5 years from now, he's going to be unstoppable. If you're going to beat this kid, you got to catch him early. So when is he going to get that vet lesson? Tim Elliott is definitely live. This line is definitely wide. Tim Elliott should definitely be a bet. I just don't know if I can physically do it. And Makhachev is coming back from this injury kind of quickly, to be honest with you. The pick is Makhachev. Makhachev is the better fighter. It's just he does dumb stuff, and someone like Tim Elliott can definitely take advantage of it. That line is so wide. They're trying to goad me into it. There's so many huge lines here. They want me to make these bad bets, and I might fucking do it. Screw it. The bet's going to be Muhammad. The bet's going to be Tim Elliott. Or I was even looking at Makhachev by sub. He really might guillotine him. I think Makhachev either guillotines him or Tim Elliott wins a decision. That's where I'm at right now. But Makhachev by submission was only like plus 200 the last time I checked. And you could get Tim Elliott just straight up at plus 350. Yeah, value. That's the move. The pick is going to be Makhachev by sub, to be 100% honest with you. But the pick is going to, or the bet's going to be Tim Elliott, and I'm just probably going to end up doing a dog or pass. All right, next fight of the night. We have Said Nurmagomedov at minus 205 going up against Muin Gafarov at plus 170. Over under set at 2.5. Over 2.5 plus 130. Minus 130. Under 2.5 plus 100. Let's start with Said. His last name is Nurmagomedov, so he's clearly going to be the crowd favorite. He has okay wrestling, but he's predominantly a striker. He throws a lot of spinning shit. Like he will spin for all 15 minutes, spinning back fist, spinning back kick, spinning wheel kick. Like he loves his spins. And he loves to kick. Like he loves just throwing flashy stuff out there. Is it a tall, lanky build to have a 2-inch reach advantage here? He can slow down in his fights. We've seen it over and over again. The Jonathan Martinez fight, he slowed down. In the Douglas Silva de Andrade fight, he slowed down. You see it all the time with him. But at the end of the day, he is very, very good. He trains, although he's not blood related to Khabib. He does train with all of them. He does carry that last name, and he's Russian, man. It's an add the crowd, and even though wrestling's not his strong suit, he's still good at it. He's still fucking good at it. He's been around it his whole life. He just has an added wrinkle with that striking that's very good. On the flip side, we have Muin Gafarov. His striking is not good, to be honest with you. It's just wild. I like Muin. I like Muin a lot. I bet him in his last fight against Don Castaneda. Just too much too soon on short notice. It is what it is. He also is from Tajikistan, just like Naimov. So I don't know. Saeed should have the crowd, but it's not like they're not going to like Muin at all. He's durable though. He's very, very hard to put away. I'm looking at his record here. He's never been finished. He did get dropped in a few fights, but he's never fully gone out. He has a tendency to slow down in his fights a little bit too, so it might balance out here. He loves to just pressure and swing. The dude's strong. The dude's physically built. He I can't say he's a dad bod, but it's just not like a physically imposing body. But it's like one of those like farmer strength type guys out there. It's just he's not very technical. He pressures forward. He has good wrestling. He has decent striking, hits decently hard. It just doesn't look pretty. He makes it real dirty as he's just moving forward. And he's there to get hit while you're doing that. So um at the end of the day, he's just a generalist who slows down a little bit in his fights, but optically looks good pressuring, but you're fighting Saeed. He's going to throw all the flashy stuff and have the crowd behind him. So if the numbers end up looking similar, but Saeed threw all the cool stuff, I think the judges are going to go his way. Also, he has those tall, lanky arms. He can snatch up ninja chokes and guillotines. We've seen it, Darce chokes. We've seen it time and time again in the UFC with Saeed. So if Muin gets tired and shoots a sloppy takedown, we've seen Saeed with a round 3 sub before against Saidikov Kakramanov, my boy. So we could very well see it again. So I like Saeed as the pick, and Saeed's going to end up being my bet. Initially, I like the over, but he might catch him in a choke. So I'm going to pick Saeed. I'm going to bet Saeed. Not bad odds at minus 200. Next fight of the night, we can save some time on. Warley Alves plus 410 going up against Ikram Alisarov at minus 550. Over under set at 1.5. Over 1.5 plus 150. Under 1.5 minus 195. I'll be honest with you, I'm not high on Ikram. A lot of people think he's really good. He's 14-1. His only loss is to Hamzat Chimaev. Like you're going to hear that over and over again. He'll have the crowd behind them. He's Russian. He should go out there and win this fight. He's minus 550 for Christ's sake. I think minus 625 the last time I checked. He does have good wrestling by default. He's Russian. He has sneaky good jiu-jitsu. It's not sneaky good actually. Most of his wins are by sub. You would look at him and think he hits decently hard, which is true. He does hit hard. Is he that technical on the feet? No. He's a little bit of a punching bag, to be honest with you. His striking's not that good. He's pretty hittable. It's one of these guys that rely on his power because he hits so hard, but he's kind of slow. His technique's not that good, and he's there to get hit. But if he catches you, you could go out. Or he could just use that power to take you down and submit you like he does time and time again. Look at his record. I mean, Kimura, decision, Kimura, KO, obviously the Hamzat loss, KO, ground and pounds, take you down and finish you there, split, guillotine, like armbar. Most of his wins are by sub, but he has a lot of decisions here too. He's just a little overhyped. I do not like how hittable he is on the feet. And his wrestling, I've seen it get stuffed a few times. Like I've seen him against Hamzat not be able to take him down. I saw him against against Mario Souza. Mario Souza is a string being, and he stuffed like the first 4 takedown attempts. I really only saw doubles. I wish he chained wrestled a little more. I think that's what I'm missing. That's what I need to see. Just because I haven't seen it doesn't mean he can't do it. But I do want to see that a little more in his game to fully buy the hype. Right now, I think I'm waiting to fade this guy. I bet him against Phil Hawes. I loved him as a dog. That made no sense. But I'm waiting to fade him in the future. I don't think Warley's the guy, though. Warley, you're going to hear over and over, yeah, he's the only man to beat Colby or finish Colby Covington by submission. Yada, yada. Yes, he beat Colby Covington. That's his best win on his record. But Colby was on record not feeling well before that fight, and it was just weird stuff that happened. Don't get me wrong, Warley's good. He has good striking. He's really good jiu-jitsu. He was an Ultimate Fighter winner, like Ultimate Fighter Brazil or something like that. But his cardio's terrible, and he's a little chinny, and he usually fights at 170. He's taking this fight on short notice up a weight class. I hate that. He himself is a little hittable. And he's fought good people. He fought Colby. He fought Jeremiah Wells. He fought Kamaru Usman. He fought Brian Barberina back in the day. Like, he's fought some good guys here. It's just like Ikram. He's a little bit of a front runner. And then he'll start to slow down, but Ikram's cardio is a little better. Both of them are a little chinny. But at the end of the day, Ikram had a full fight camp, and Warley, although he just has a puncher's chance going out here, and he can knock anyone out in the first 3 minutes. He's doing this on short notice up a weight class, so that weight class is going to keep me away. Can I trust Warley, or sorry, can I trust Ikram to get an early finish? No. I don't hate the over 1.5 here. I think that's the play. Plus 150. I think Ikram will be able to take down Worley eventually. And if he does, Worley's no fish off his back. Like, he has good jujitsu. He can stay safe for a round. And I'm hoping he can just survive an extra 2.5 minutes after that first round. I guess plus 150 is not bad. So the pick is going to be Ikram. Cannot trust him at minus 625. So let's just take that over 1.5 at plus 150. Then that takes us to one of the big three fights here. We have Magomed Ankalaev at minus 355, the uncrowned champ, going up against Johnny Weirdo Walker at plus 280. Over under set at 1.5. Over 1.5 minus 165. Under 1.5 plus 130. Let's start with the uncrowned champ. Ankalaev is the light heavyweight champ currently. He just doesn't have his belt because of that draw, that split draw against Jan Blachowicz. The crowd gonna be behind him. He's Russian. He's 18-1-1, only loss being to Paul Craig in that last second submission. That's still the craziest thing. One of the craziest things that ever happened in UFC history. He got triangled and he got tapped with literally 1 second left in the fight as he dominated the other 14 minutes. But he himself is a little bit of a generalist, to be honest with you. He has decent power, but he doesn't knock everyone out anymore. He has decent cardio, but he can slow down a little bit at the end of the fight. He has good jiu-jitsu, but he's not really tapping anyone out. He has good wrestling, but he's averaging like 1 to 2 takedowns per fight. He has good striking, but the volume's not super high. It's whatever. He has pretty decent counters. He's just good everywhere. He has zero weaknesses. His level of competition, good. His striking, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, good. His power, good enough. Like, everything about this guy is just good, but he's flat across the board. He doesn't excel anywhere. If he had a little better fight IQ, I'd like it 10 times better, considering he can beat anyone in any way. If he's fighting a striker, he can go out there and wrestle you like he did with Krylov. If he's fighting a wrestler, he can go out there and outstrike you like he did with Kutalaba. Like, he can choose which way he wants to do it. He just likes to try to strike first, and then after the first, he's known to just give away the first round and then decide, I guess there's an easier path here, and just sneak out a victory. He always fights to his opponent's level, and he's not scared to give away round one just playing around. I don't know why he does that. I hate that. We haven't seen him since the Jan fight. It's been over a year. That was in 2022. Yeah, it's been just about a year since we've seen him. So, and he's 31. He's just in the middle of his prime right now. So everything about him is good. There's zero bad outside of he likes to play to the level of his opponents. On the other side, Johnny Weirdo Walker has a little bit of a career resurgence right now, but I think this might be a little too much for him. First of all, he's got to cut his fucking hair. If you've watched any of the Embedded, that little like emo Johnny Walker we have going on right now, it's got to go. He's training over at SBG Ireland with his Irish wife. I don't know if she's the one that gave him the idea to do whatever he's doing with his hair right now. If it is, they need a divorce because that hair has got to go. He has good striking, very, very powerful guy. He's dialed it down at SPG, though. We saw it in the Thiago Santos fight. We saw it in the Anthony Smith fight. We saw it in the Paul Craig fight. He has definitely dialed back his craziness ever since he got knocked out. Where was it? By Krylov, or not? He just lost to Krylov. He gassed out. So he got knocked out by Corey Anderson. He gassed out to Krylov, and then he just kind of slowed down his pace against Ryan Spann. He slowed down his pace against Thiago. It still lost, but it is what it is. Jamal Hill, he slowed down his pace. He got caught, and then he's on this 3-fight winning streak. Like, he has a 7-inch reach advantage. That's massive. And they want to go pitter patter and throw 1-2s at each other the whole time. Johnny Walker is willing to do so because he has such a huge reach advantage and can get out of the way. The problem with him is he's chinny as fuck. Like, he is a glass cannon. If he hits you, you go out. If you tap him, he's gone. We all saw the viral Jamal Hill knockout where he literally just fell backwards with his hand in the air. We saw Corey Anderson, who is a wrestler, knock him out. We saw him on the regional scene get knocked out multiple times in like 18. Okay, it was a Henrique Silva fight, a jungle fight. He got knocked out like 5 times in the span of 20 seconds. Like the ref didn't jump in for whatever reason, and he got knocked out multiple times in one sitting in 20 seconds. It was bad. His jiu-jitsu's okay. It's gotten a lot better, but he has 60% takedown defense. It's not very good. He hasn't fought a lot of guys that tried to wrestle him, but the fights where they did, it did not look good. Especially like he can stuff a double. That's about it. Someone changed to I forgot who I watched, and they changed it to a single leg, and he looked very confused. Like he didn't know what was happening. So his wrestling's not that great. He counters very well, but I don't know, man. He has bad cardio, but he's been pacing himself, so he can go a hard 50, or he can go 15 now if you go at a pedestrian pace with him, which is what we saw in the Anthony Smith fight. That's kind of what we saw in the Thiago Santos fight. If you just take it real easy and just kind of spar with him, he's fine. That's how Magomed has been fighting. He likes to just sit there and spar. But again, he will lose the first round. So this is what I see. They go out there and they spar for 15 minutes. It's a close fight, kind of boring, and then Magomed starts mixing in the takedowns because he can. That's what he does. He goes out there, he makes it really close, and then he decides, well, this is the path of least resistance. I need to make sure I win. And that's what he does. So I think Magomed's going to end up doing that. He might actually lose round one. I might end up live betting Magomed to get a better line, to be honest with you. That's probably how it's going to end up going. But the pick is going to be Magomed. The bet can be Magomed on Kalaya. All right, next fight of the night. We have one of the first impromptus. You have Kamaru Usman plus 225 going up against Khamzat Chimaev at minus 280. Over under set at 2.5. Over 2.5 plus 135. Under 2.5 minus 175. Let's just go ahead and start with Usman and his bad knees. This is another vet lesson here, but is the vet too old? Everyone's talking about the knee pop situation going on over at the open workouts. Gaethje's trying to say, I asked if he hit his head. He said, no, I'm on top. Other people are saying, Gaethje said, are you okay? He said, no, I heard my knee pop. Like, no one really knows what is going on with his knees, but they knew they were fucked before he even joined the UFC, to be honest with you. Go ahead and watch old fights. Go ahead and watch old training sessions. Go ahead and watch him when he was strictly wrestling. Knee pads everywhere. Bad knees before he even joined the UFC. But he fights through it, man. He's 36 years old. And this is on short notice. It's on like 10 days notice, up a weight class at 185. None of that sounds good. Bad knees, old man, getting chinny, up a weight class. None of that is good. Here's the pros for him. His wrestling's phenomenal. It's only been taken down one time. Technically two. Colby got him once. They just didn't call it. But on paper, has only been taken down one time in the UFC. That is huge because he has fought a lot of wrestlers and a lot of guys that tried to take him down. He has a good wrestling pedigree and he is using it. He is a good wrestler. His striking is infinitely improved, much better. Very good jab. Very, very, very one of the best jabs in MMA. His jiu-jitsu, not that great, but he's so good on the ground that it doesn't fucking matter. He's fought the who's who, and he has godly cardio. Like, he does not get tired. No matter how much he fights, he doesn't get tired. So the other huge thing I like here is that the person that gave Khamzat the biggest struggle of his career was Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns not only shared the octagon with Usman in a title defense, they're best friends. They were talking about how that was one of the hardest fights they ever had to do because they trained together for years. Usman had to end up leaving Sanford, or what's it called now, Killcliff, and he had to go train with Trevor Whitman because they trained at the same place and they were fighting each other for a title. So he switched training camps, started training with Whitman and Justin Gaethje and such. But he still cross trains now, half at Killcliff, half with Whitman. Like, that's what he does now. So now that they've already fought, Usman and Burns train together all the time. So Burns has felt Khamzat. He knows what he's good at. He knows what he's bad at, and he can give him some personal insights. On the other side, Khamzat's an absolute monster. Actually, I'll give you one more on Usman. Usman is a former welterweight champ. Khamzat is Chimaev has predominantly been at 170. He's bounced back and forth between 185 and 170. We thought this was going to be a title fight at 170. We're seeing at 185. If Usman's going to go up to 185, at least he's fighting another potential welterweight. But I don't know if Chimaev ever makes it back down to 170 again. He's huge. He's a very, very big man. He himself is really good wrestling. He has pretty good striking. I would say he's probably the better striker. The thing I didn't like is that in a lot of his fights, in the Ikram fight and the Burns fight, all the fights where he didn't just go out and dominate right away with his wrestling and grappling, he had a problem with a jab. And again, Usman has one of the best jabs in MMA, so you really have to watch that. However, his jiu-jitsu is very good and Usman's is very bad. So then you have to watch that. So it really comes down to who's the better wrestler. The crowd is definitely going to be behind Hamzat. He's 29 years old, so he's in his prime. His knees are just fine. And he's been cracked, man. I'm not saying he's chinny, but I've seen him drop the few times he has gotten hit. Kind of reminds me of like a Wonder Boy. He never gets touched, and we're like, is his chin any good? And then the few times Wonder Boy got touched, he did go down or go out. This could be the same thing to where he might be chinny. He's hard to hit. No one really touches him, but if you do, I've seen him drop multiple times by Burns. So that was a little concerning. And Burns used to fight at 155. Okay. This fight is at 185. Hamzat is generally a middleweight now. He got dropped by a lightweight. That's not the greatest look. However, he's a damn good wrestler. It's going to come down to wrestling because on the feet, it's close. It's very close. I might give the slightest edge to Usman. I may not. And Hamzat definitely hits harder. I'll give him that. He hits very, very hard. So both their chins are liable standing up. In regards to the wrestling, I also think it's a wash. I don't know who's going to get who. But in regards to jiu-jitsu, it's definitely going to be Hamzat. No questions asked. So I definitely think Hamzat is the side because he could submit Usman. He could knock out Usman, or he could take him down and just kind of outpoint him, or even just outpoint him by throwing more on the feet. Like he can win multiple ways. Usman probably wins by decision. Probably the only way. He might maybe knock him out later on in the fight with like a jab or something like he did with Burns. But Hamzat's not going to quit on himself. I think it's Usman decision, or I think it's Hamzat early by submission, maybe even knockout. Hamzat's definitely the pick. Do I think Usman and his championship experience can? This is Usman in 3 rounds. He hasn't fought 3 rounds in years. I don't know, man. This fight's a lot closer than this line is showing. But minus 280 is not too crazy. I need to watch weigh-ins. I need to see Usman's knees. Right now, I'll pick Hamzat, and I'll end up betting Chimaev. But if Usman is walking around fine, I think I'm gonna have to sprinkle Usman at some point. Or I live bet it. Honestly, you live bet it. If Hamzat does not take Usman down in the first 2 minutes, I'm betting Usman. If he does in the first 2 minutes, I'm probably staying away because the line's going to be ridiculous. So the pick's going to be Hamzat. The bet's going to be Usman if he survives the takedowns of the first 2 minutes. That's the way I'm going to play it. And then that takes us to the main event of the evening. If you haven't already, make sure you give this video a like, hit the subscribe, give a follow over on Twitter, over on Instagram, over on TikTok, wherever there's social media. There is the Stats and Stacks podcast. We have a rematch of the Islam Makhachev minus 245 favorite, Alexander Volkanovski off the couch at plus 200, over under setting at 4.5. Over 4.5 minus 135, under 4.5 plus 100. Let's just start with Alexander Volkanovski. Again, he had hand surgery, wasn't scheduled to fight until January with Ilia Topuria. That Charles got cut, wasn't able to compete. They needed someone. Alexander said, fuck yeah, I'm in. Let me get that champ status. At the end of the day, short notice, generally a featherweight, but he has good striking. He has good wrestling. He has pretty decent jiu-jitsu, infinite cardio. Like him and Usman don't even breathe heavy in round 5. His jiu-jitsu is good defensively. You don't see a lot of it offensively, to be honest with you. But his striking and his wrestling are very, very, very good. The thing I will say about Alexander, he's been caught in a few submissions. He got out of them, but he has been caught in them, so he could get tapped. It's not like he's imperviable to getting submitted. He's also been rocked a lot of times. Eventually, someone's going to put him out. So I think if he does end up still fighting Ilia might be the guy just because styles make fights. Volk is 35 years old, and that's when you start to fade. And he's already had a little bit of a chin check history. Chad Mendez rocked him. Max Holloway rocked him in the second fight. Brian Ortega rocked him. He's been rocked multiple times. I think Islam did in their first fight once. I can't remember. But yeah, he's been rocked multiple times and stumbled. One of these times he's going to go out, and I think it's Father Time that's going to eventually catch him. And if he doesn't get put out, he might get choked. And that's why fighting someone like Ilya is scary, because all he does is hit extremely hard and have good submissions. So that's a little concerning there. But that's not the fight we're talking about. We're talking about the Islam fight. And good news for Volk is that Islam doesn't hit particularly hard, but he is a damn good wrestler, and he has had a full fight camp. He's very, very, very good wrestling. Good jujitsu. Okay cardio. He can slow down. And we saw it in his first fight, but he banked the first 3 rounds. He will have the crowd behind him this time. Last time they were in Perth, Australia, and everyone and their mother was behind Volk. This time around, Islam's going to get a second win from the crowd because they're all going to be on his side. Now, he is a little chinny at times, is kind of the only chink in his armor. However, Volk doesn't really hit that hard either. Neither one of these guys hit hard. I don't think he's going to knock out Volk, but I think he might get him this time with a submission. They never have fights go the same way as the first time, ever. Like, it just never happens. And if this rematch, the first time it went to a close decision. This time it's either going to be a dominant decision, or I think Islam might take him down and smother him. And if he doesn't get a TKO, maybe he submits him. I think the under hits here. I think Islam's going to find a way with a full fight camp. So the pick is going to be Islam. The bet's going to be Islam. And I might put some on the plus 100 with that under. It's plus money. And that is UFC 294 Makhachev versus Volkanovski. If you haven't already, please hit that like. Please hit that subscribe. Please listen to the whole video. And please get paid this week, baby. Let's get it.